Good morning. I am Ronaldo McKenzie. Welcome to another episode of the Neoliberal Round podcast. It is 1:42 a.m. on a Monday morning. It is Monday, March 28th. Monday, March 28th. And I am here in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. But actually, I don't believe I'm in Philadelphia. I am somewhere else. And but today I have a brand new show for you, a brand new episode, which we're going to be adding to the neoliberal round as a regular feature. Over the past weeks and months and the recordings that we have done, you've been hearing from me, and sometimes I also have one or two other guests. We had Ricardo McKenzie, my twin brother, who was a guest when we talk about relationship, and that was part one. We still have a part two of that episode still to come, and of course we had Maurice Smith, who is a case management specialist, and has been on the show. He's also a member of Phi Beta Sigma fraternity, and he participated on the show, helping us to distill some of the concepts that we're putting forward here. And of course we had another guest on the show who talked about regenerative agriculture. And of course I can't remember her name, but it was a random conversation I had with someone I had encountered on the street, and we had a conversation, and I came to understand that she actually works in Latin America, with the government in with several different countries in Latin America, uh, empowering those people and working with the people of Latin America to develop a new kind of strategy, a new kind of method, and it's regenerative agriculture. And that's on one of the episodes. And regenerative agriculture is quite interesting, especially for today, when countries are still trying to develop some amount of independence in terms of their ability to be able to provide for the livelihood of the peoples within their countries. And many developing countries and countries of the global south, and not just developing but peoples, many vulnerable peoples all over the world, even in post-industrial countries and developing countries, have peoples who are left behind and who experience poverty, who experience lack. And and also, when we start to explore ways in which we can support and aid these people, and not just explore the ways but actually act upon them and provide mechanisms that prevent the aid that is needed to actually get to these people. Because more often than not, we see where programs are developed that is aimed at alleviating poverty and helping to improve the distributional equity in society. More often than not, what happens is that there is always a report after the program that the people who were supposed to get the benefit did not get it, and we are back to square one. Say, for example, the stimulus that was given out, the third round of stimulus that was given out, was there was a package for small businesses, and President Biden had signed the stimulus into law, but part of that package was a caveat or a mechanism or a policy which was designed to ensure that small businesses and vulnerable people would get the aid that they need ahead of large businesses and the millionaires and the billionaires and the wealthy people in society and those who are always ahead. But what happened was that many of these people still end up didn't getting the help that they needed. Say, for example, I had a business, the Neoliberal Corporation, and when I started the Neoliberal Corporation in April, I couldn't open a bank account at first. It was difficult to open up a bank account because many of the banks that I had approached made it difficult for me to open an account because they thought that I was opening an account so that I can access the stimulus or the funds that were given to the banks to administer, in a sense, and to distribute the funds. But the banks, by the time I was able to finally open up a bank account, the funding had dried up. So many persons, the thing is, the requirement to access certain benefits in society also prevents these individuals, vulnerable peoples in society and vulnerable peoples and countries in society from getting access to the aid and the support and the benefit they need in order to move them along and ahead, or so that they can be a meaningful and a relevant and an effective contributor and competitor in this race of life. And I have said that this society is complex. Society is complex, and it is selectively so, designed to be so that it is difficult to see how the arrangements and the systems and the modus operandi of society, how it creates poverty and inequality and how it affects people's lives. It's difficult to sort through that. And even when you create opportunities to help, the red tape and the policies and the requirements are insurmountable to some people. It's difficult to meet those requirements, and by the time they actually end up meeting the requirements, it's too late. There are more requirements or newer requirements, or the funding and the aid and the support that was available is no longer on the table. So that's part of the problem. So as a society, we have to continue to speak with people on the ground to find out what they're feeling and what they're going through, so that as a society we can work together to resolve these issues and these challenges. But if society, or the few in society who also form part of the power base and the power block in society, continue to make it difficult, or continue to ensure that they hold on to where they are in life and their competitive advantage, then society will continue to operate the way that it operates. And then we will continue to sell a facade of this dream, this dream in where anyone who works hard can realize it. But you don't work hard and get where you are. Working hard is important, but there are But when society is set up the way that it is set up, it's very important for us to understand the inner workings of society. So not just for us to work hard at something, but to also understand it at its metaphysical level, so that we can know how to work through the complexities of life to get where we need to go. And there are some people, and so I created this, but one of the things that I am against is privilege, as I said, and position, and I reference Gramsci in many of my writings about this intellectualism, where only some people believe that they have access to critical thinking and analytical thought and so on and so forth. And it is set up in such a way that only a few have access. Everywhere in society, there is always a few. This connectionism, and Waterloo talks about this connectionism in society. He writes about the economic history, the economic labor history of America, and he looks at how this drive to form unions, certain unions or corporations or a selective group, and then how those selective groups develop credentials to enter those groups, and the credentials are set up, are really walls that's set up to keep people out, so that they can protect the few that is within that particular group. That's a problem for society that we have to sort through as well. Another thing that we have to sort through in society is, we talk about President Biden. We talk about this Ukraine-Russian war and what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, and we have been hammering home and driving home the need for the West and for the world to acquiesce to President Zelensky's request, asking for the world to close the airspace and to also protect their airspace by providing the necessary planes and jets and the artillery and the equipment so that they can protect their airspace. And NATO and the West are saying that they cannot do that. They will not do that. They will not close. First of all, they were slow to apply actions, and they still have connections with Russia. And in some instances, some of these connections are so deep and entrenched that it's as if they cannot do without Russian products and Russian goods and Russian services and Russian business. Because if some of these European countries were to do without Russian oil and Europe actually 80% of the oil, that 80% of Europe's oil come from Russia. So you can understand the problems that they are going through. But the problem is human beings have a tendency to wait until it is too late to do things. Europe already understands Putin and Russia, and they still up to today, after Russia went to Crimea and after Russia went into several other European countries, after Russian aggression and intimidation in the world, they are still 80% of Russia of oil and fuel or energy comes from Russia. That is absolutely ridiculous. It tells you that our government, our leaders are weak-kneed and they lack vision. It tells us that they are ambivalent. They are against Putin and his ideology, but yet they take his oil, and in fact, to the point where they are dependent on it, but yet still they're speaking against him. And now their hands are tied. So I'm making a point here. People set up walls in their lives. People set up rules, develop rules, and that they can't jump over, that they cannot, or that oftentimes pose a problem for people. NATO developed a policy with the Soviet countries, and they are going to abide by that, by Article 5 or whatever article or agreements that came up after the breakup of the Soviet Union and so on. And okay, there was an agreement where all the European countries and decided, which the few European countries that were initially part of the NATO, so that they would form a union to protect against Russian aggression. And of course, NATO has brought in other countries, Poland and even some of the former Soviet countries, which Russia is against. And of course, Russia is against that. They are upset about that. But Putin keeps reminding NATO and the other Western countries and European countries not to break their agreement, not to get involved in this war. Yet, the thing is, Russia has broken every single rule. Putin has broken every single rule. Every single rule. Putin has broken every single rule with his aggressions and intimidations in the world. Yet, the West is expected to abide by certain rules. That is what we call Pharisaicalism. Do as I say, but not as I do, or do as we agree upon. But I won't. Don't bind me or hold me to that, because the law is not a shackle. For Putin, the law is not a shackle, but for the West, it must be. You see, that's what we're talking about when that's an issue of power. There is the power dynamic in the dynamics in the world, where some people, that we're talking about privilege. Putin must privilege a particular position and decision, but the West should not. The West should not break their rule. The West should not close the come to Ukraine aid by closing the airspace. The West should not protect Ukraine's airspace by providing jets and planes, because they don't want to violate Article 5 or to violate any agreement. Yet, Putin is violating a human ethic, the highest ethic. He's destroying lives. No agreement. There is no agreement that is higher than the highest ethic. The highest ethic that we have is to preserve life. No agreement that NATO has with Putin trumps that particular ethic that we have, and that particular rule of thumb, and that particular value, to preserve life. So that is where I stand on the issue. And this is what when we talk about the issue of power and privilege, where some people want to privilege a particular position. We talk about Pharisaicalism. When I talk about Pharisaicalism, a set of Jews, okay, in the time of Jesus, about, let's say, 100 AD or CE, or during that time, a Jewish sect, the Pharisees, they were said to be erudite and strict, and they applied the law. However, they did not live by the same law that they were strict about. It was a different law. And you see, and that continues in society today. Privilege and position and power. And some people want to control a certain narrative. And say, for example, we talk about social media, which is social media is the greatest victory for peoples in the world. For peoples in the world who are marginalized. It's the greatest victory in the world, because now nobody can control the narrative. No one person or group of people can control information, because knowledge is power. Information is powerful. You see what's happening in Russia, you see what's happening in China, in some of these socialist countries, and I'm not going to call them communist countries, and I'm not going to call them socialist countries. I'm going to call them totalitarian countries. There's a difference between totalitarianism and what is meant by communism and socialism. Because socialism wasn't supposed to be a despotic kind of government. It shouldn't have a despotic or totalitarianism. In fact, you can have socialism in capitalism. And we also argue that capitalism itself is no longer the capitalism we understand. Capitalism is no longer about hard work and saving and so on. It's no longer about the Protestant ethic. Again, it's about greed and nepotism and connectionism, and we talked about that a bit. We referenced that a bit just now. It's about connectionism and greed. So so you have to look at the whole issue of power and this dynamic in the world, privilege and power, and it's just this constant. When you look, if you study history and you look at history, you study current trends and the dynamics of peoples in the world. So we say capitalism is about nepotism now. Socialism and so on is not, and communism is not socialism and communism, it's totalitarianism, where a few people, a few politicians make up the status quo. A few politicians make up the elite group. So so when people talk about communism, you talk what China and some of these countries have. What they have is a kind of capitalism based on ego, a kind of capitalism based on greed and or power and so on. But their greed is power. Maybe not in the West. Probably some people may say it's more about materialism and so on. And while other people may see China and Russia and these countries, probably it's more the greed is power, or this drive to rule or to be dominant. So, and then within societies, there are groups who are racing, competing with each other on a racial basis, based on the color of skin. So you see the confusion and that's how you see what's going on. You see the problems. The neoliberal is about serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges. So so today's episode, and it's gonna be, we're gonna feature voices from the streets, and we want to hear. We are taking this medium and this platform, the neoliberal round, to the streets, not just to the academics, and not just to the professionals in the boardrooms, and the commentators and the analysts on major news platforms and so on. But we want to find out what's the pulse of the street, the beat. What's the beat on the road? What are people playing? What are people saying? How do people feel? And part of my work, part of my job is to engage people. I am always on the road. I'm always on the street, meeting people, and I find it very anthropological. I find it very, and I am doing a Doctor of Liberal Studies at Georgetown now, and but before that I was at Penn, and I did 2 masters at Penn, a Master's of Liberal Arts and then a Master of Philosophy, but within the liberal arts field. And I really appreciate this liberal arts. Liberal arts is about, when we talk about liberal studies or liberal arts, it is interdisciplinary, man. It looks at issues of ethics and human value and ethics. And so it is very important for us to understand what is going on in society. How are people thinking? And sometimes it is the youth, it is the young people, it's the people in community that they are the ones that will change society. And their ideas are different. Their ideas about society and how people should relate. And in Russia, recently I shared an episode where I talked about what's going on in Russia, and the older population in Russia think differently than the younger population. The younger ones they're just concerned about the brand names not being in Russia anymore, while the people, they don't care for the war, they don't know it, they don't care, they are indifferent to it, while they don't know what's going on. They just want to ensure that they have what they have, the brand names. And while the older people are more concerned about Russia is on Putin is on a world-saving mission, and so on and so forth. And this is needed for Russia, and Russia will bounce back, and so on and so forth. So you find that there is, but the young people, but what is happening is that the older people think that the society is getting away from them, the values, because now young people, they are not thinking of in terms of race anymore. They're not thinking about, but they are thinking, there is this newness, there is this freshness amongst the young people, moving away from, and so society is doing everything they can by banning critical race theory and so on and so forth, and even going to war and to attack the capital and so on. That's but the younger generation, they are partying in clubs with one another and so on and so forth. It's a different society, and so what is going on now is the old society's intention between the old values and the new values, while at the same time, in terms of the old want to hold on to, it's trying to hold on to racism, hold on to classism, hold on to the other isms in society, while the younger people are moving away from that, in a sense. You find that there was a recent report that shows that young people are changing the way we think about work now. Well, I don't know if it's young people or if it's with a mix of COVID and so on and so forth. But young people, they want more flexibility. People today want more flexibility at work. Because of the way of the world is changing as well. The way we think about the world. The fact, if people can work remotely, why do we need to go into the office every day? They are asking those questions. The young people are now are very utilitarian. They're asking about the utility of things, or the sensicality. They ask, what sense does that make? In a sense, we may not see them as rational and philosophical, but in a sense, they are. And so that is one of the. So in a sense, the hope of society lies with young people. Because they are the ones that are moving away from racism, and so, and the older people, the older people, the older population demographic, they are the ones who are trying to put things in place and laws and so on to prevent the evolution of society, so to speak. But and so I said I want to hear what's going on. People. The young people don't think about, they don't quote Plato or Socrates anymore. They're talking about Little Baby, Lil Wayne, Jay-Z, yes, Polo G, Nas, so on and so forth. Little Dirk, Zasusa, and those are the people they are listening to. NBA Young Bull or Young Boy. Imagine, the masses, or a lot of the people, a lot of the young people, a lot of the people in society today, they are more aware of of this fad culture, and what is important is what these people have to say, and they can quote Little Baby and Little Wayne and Jay-Z and so on and so forth, but they cannot tell you, and they don't understand people, they don't understand Socrates, they don't understand, and of course the way in which society is structured today, it is structured based on these old English and old certain values, which is sometimes the way people talk today, and the language. People use simpler terms to communicate. So it's easy to miss things as well. But even if you go back, if you delve into history and try to understand how people, as you look at how English has changed and how English has evolved over time, English and language as a whole have changed. Languages, because life is about people and how we communicate, and the way in which we communicate, as that changed, so language changed to fit the way in which we communicate, and so on and so forth. And it is especially in today's society with social media and so on, with access to information and so on. So people in society have a lot to say, and there are lots of interesting perspectives, and we want to hear what people have to say. And so we're going to be carrying episodes where we randomly join conversations and engage people, and we will show it, and we will showcase that to you, because it's quite an interesting catalog, or a montage or a collage of people and their ideas and their thoughts and so on. So there are two conversations I want to share with you today. One I had with a lady by the name of Lisa, and it was quite refreshing talking to her and sharing with her about power and the dynamic of society and so on and so forth. That's a clean conversation. Then I had another conversation with a group of individuals, an impromptu discussion, a rap session, a chill session, so to speak. So the conversation, which is it's not clean, it has some explicit language in there. So I apologize for the explicit language. I think there's only one instant, and you might hear the word nigger being called, but it's quite funny. It's quite there's a lot of humor in there, in these. But it's called, and we're gonna call it the pulse of the street, or the beat on the streets. So this episode is called The Beat on the Streets, and this was a long introduction. I did not intend to begin this podcast episode by speaking for 33 minutes. I was only supposed to speak for 5 to 10 minutes, and then introduce the two segments, which are actually two separate recordings, two separate takes, where I was one take was just done just a few minutes ago, an hour or 2 hours ago, where I had someone in my car and we had a discussion about issues of power, and we talk about information, and she shares a passion about her community, and what she wants to happen in Philadelphia, and it's quite powerful, and I hope you guys get to hear that. And then I had a conversation with a group of young men who were actually hanging, and it's quite interesting, it's quite funny, you've got to hear it. They are talking about, we were talking about neoliberalism, globalization, income inequality, poverty, and resistance. And it was quite funny, it was quite humorous, it was quite relaxing. So I probably may have to create another episode to present that, but I want to share that with you. So this episode, we're talking about beats and the beat on the street, and we're going to lift up conversations in discussions we're having with individuals and how they feel. The first one, I'm rapping with somebody and this with Lisa, and we are both talking. She's gonna be a bit faded, but she is clear, and she should be clear enough for you to hear her. And then of course, and she might make some assertions, but these are perspectives. So please excuse anything that she might say that you may not agree with, and she makes certain assertions and assumptions, but it's all in the within the whole atmosphere of sharing and talking with each other, and it's impromptu. She let her hair down in a sense, and it's chill, and we want to reveal some chill time with you guys. So here we go, and we're going to be having several of these conversations. So here we go. Thank you so much, and the next conversation you hear would be the conversation I'm having with Lisa, and then after that, the next segment is going to be a conversation I'm having with a group of people at a impromptu rap chill session, talking about all things neoliberalism and globalization. Thank you so much, and see you in 1 second.
Many other isms, sexism, I mean, things like that. There's so many.
I actually wrote an article that says the world now has 2 more global challenges. The world now has 2 more global challenges in addition to China and Russia. Sorry, in addition to racism, sexism, classism, and so on. The world now has the issue of Russia and China, but all of that stems from the issue of power. That power. And then people who are trying to maintain power or increase power or expand power, they use tools or strategies. Now, so classism, racism, all these are tools. So if a society is not based on race, then they use class.
Exactly.
If it's not based on class, then they pull for something else. Sex.
Exactly.
Or gender. So or if it's not based on that, then they use something else. Denominational differences or religion.
That's right.
I'm telling you, all these things can be utilized as strategies in the world, and that's why I said, first of all, you said that somebody said, one of your bosses said that he doesn't believe in
God.
doesn't believe in God, and I said to you, he is not that he doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe what people, create human ideas about God or what we have. What we created.
He used to go to church with Mom. It's because he had a lot of brothers and sisters. Parents would tell them take him to church and all. But I don't know, what did he have an event in his life that made him decide? Oh, there's no God. Because some people can feel as though they have an incident that happens to them.
And
then that makes them say, well, if this happened, there can't be no God. That kind of thing. People can go through a lot of strife in their lives. So they think because they went through so much strife and turmoil that there's no God. Because if there were, he wouldn't allow it, or he'd pull them up out of it.
Right. That is true.
But we all are going to have something. Stress or something. We're all going through something. That's just life. I tell my son that. Life throws you curveballs.
But earlier I did a podcast and I was talking about how we are conditioned to think in categories. In fact, I think I go by a theme. My tagline is serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges, and I think the challenge we have in society is a challenge of life, because life is about people and how people relate, how people communicate. So the challenges in society is one of human dynamics and how we relate. And I was talking about, and so I often say, what is the ultimate of all things? The ultimate of all things is that we live as one, with all of our individuality, with all of our differences, but the thing is, when we come together as people, that is powerful. That is the most powerful thing. But when we have a society where you are filling out application, they ask you, what is your race? What is your ethnicity? They ask you all these things. I believe it is strategic. It is conditioning us.
Or they say that the government is keeping, what they call, not tabs, but I can't think of the word. Like, they just want to get a feel, so they claim, or how many blacks apply for this, or how many women apply for this, or how many disabled
Well,
people.
I mean, to be honest, they said that it's also helped to determine how to dispense or to distribute services in communities. Say, for example, how many demographically, how many black persons live in a society, how many white persons live in a society, how many people, and so on and so forth. But that so that they can now distribute the the services in society
Mm-hmm.
based on race. But
But I think if anything, that would help. They'd limit what they would do in the black communities, because I think a lot of them think, because some blacks are ignorant, not all, but they kind of think we all just don't care or don't deserve, and so we get tossed to the side.
Yes.
A lot of black people do care and do want to improve, want to do better.
Yes.
But we're more likely to be. White folks are more economically, politically, educationally, and everything, and socially advantaged than we are. So let's say you got 3/4 of black people that want to, let's say, this neighborhood and build it up, better it, make it more of, have more economic impact. Their hands are tied behind their back because poverty. When you poor, that's powerlessness.
Yes.
But you got 3/4 of it, but the other fourth is ignorant and uncouth and running around doing dumb stuff and destroying the neighborhood.
Yes.
So to the outsiders, they think we're all like that. I mean, I can't think of 3 people, even if I had myself, if I had $100,000, let's go invest and do like this.
Yes.
We also don't have. It's just like, even if we came into money, we don't have the same connects that white people have.
Yes.
So it's different. We need somebody to come and help us more. I wish somebody would come forth and try to educate us more.
Yes.
I say, if I can try to learn more about investing,
knowledge is power.
I'll spread the word.
Knowledge is power, and
knowledge is
power. And if you look throughout the history of the world, man has sought to hide the truth.
Yeah.
From, say, for example, if you look at in religion, if you look at the church, the Bible was written in Latin, was in Latin, and so only the papacy and the nobles and people who could read and write, and only a few people were able or were given the opportunity to read and write and to read and write Latin. And if people could read and write English, that didn't help them because the Bible was in Latin.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And when people were trying to translate the Bible now from Latin to something that is more understandable, to English, to a language that everybody could understand, there was a problem, because in fact the Bible was translated from Latin to French, and then from Greek to Latin to French, and so on. But it was deliberate.
Yeah.
Even the slaves, they didn't want slaves to learn to read and write.
No, because they had their own language. They didn't know the slaves, didn't know the land. They didn't know the language. They were helpless and powerless when they brought them over here.
So that is why when I see people in communities and people want to say, I'm not interested in learning about the government. I don't want to know that's too much. They don't want to get involved in their government, in their politics, and so on and so forth. Yeah. They don't understand this is also part of the strategy. They don't want people
right in front of this, see what this truck is? Yeah.
They don't want people to know anything, because once people know, then it's power. They can, and people, and as people, African Americans who are now able to read and write, who now have access. Why is it that they wouldn't want to be more involved in what's going on in school and academics and so on?
I say that too.
When it's part of the...
You would think, if anything, like I tell people, blacks should want to strive even harder because of...
Yes, because it was part of the plan for us not to know everything, so that we wouldn't advance.
The slaves didn't have a choice.
Precisely. Yes, And this is quite interesting. We will have
a choice now.
Yes.
But your ancestors didn't, so I don't understand that either.
That is so true.
Yeah.
Cloudy today. In southwest Germantown, it's 42 degrees Fahrenheit with cloudy skies. Tonight, you can look for rainy weather with a low of 42 degrees.
Oh wow, that's Samuel Jackson. But can I share something with you guys?
Depends on what you're saying.
Well, I mean, Neoliberalism, the book, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance. It's like, no, just 1 minute. I'd like to introduce my book.
That's it, 1 minute. It's like, no.
Yeah, okay, no, 2 minutes. But but I like to introduce. But wait, and I'm going to record this actually. I'd like to introduce my book, Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance. It's a 335-page academic book that was published. Wait, no, please, that was published.
You just said 330.
No, I'm not going to read the book.
Oh.
Let me introduce it, but let me know what if it speaks to you, But I'd like to introduce my book, Neoliberalism, which is a 300
Neo who?
Neoliberalism, globalization.
I'm gonna talk like one of them niggas. What the fuck did he just say? Neoliberalism?
Okay, no.
Did you just call me a nigga? Neoliberalism. Oh, I'm a neo nigga? Neoliberal. What the hell is a neo nigga?
Neoliberalism is actually two words. It's neo,
Well,
which is
I
new.
heard neo.
Liberal means free.
I heard
and
neo.
ism is always the study of. So it's the study of new.
I
free
don't know
thing.
that.
So it's really a strategy. Neoliberalism is really a
But
strategy.
in this country, there is no new free. In this country, it's just
No,
slavery.
no, neoliberalism is a strategy. It's a strategy.
Okay, because in this
The
country,
strategy.
this country ain't nothing but new slavery.
And that's what
It's
neoliberalism.
just a new form of slavery.
Right. That's what neoliberalism does. It looks,
Mental slavery.
It looks at
Mental,
It's a
emotional,
strategy.
and financial slavery.
But it's a 335-page academic book that was published last year.
Does it stress those three issues that I just mentioned?
It speaks to all of that. But upon its release, you got to hear this. It was number 1 in 2 categories: deconstructivist philosophy and critical and deconstructionist history. I'm Ronaldo McKenzie, a resident of Philadelphia, and is originally from the global south. I left Jamaica over 10 years ago and completed research at the prestigious Ivy League College, University of Pennsylvania. And from my research, I have produced an academic non-fiction book that I'd like to promote with my community. Neoliberalism was part of my research project at the University of Penn, and I worked with some of the top minds at Penn to complete this thesis that I've published in a book. The book explores issues of diversity, black history, and globalization as it affects people of the global south and those in the diaspora and marginal communities. It is an interdisciplinary book that is passionate, exciting, and different, as it is not only a coherent research project that presents and interprets data and statistics, but contains several discussions and blogs, papers, and narratives that can be interpreted as anthropological at best. Neoliberalism is 2 books in one. It is in its entirety. It is a critical examination and analysis of history, philosophy, politics, economics, and resistance in relation to the U.S., Jamaica, other countries, and the world. Part A provides a case study of how that is done. Part B analyzes the efficacy of the people's response to discrimination and hegemony, which is systematic. Now, of course, the book has been reviewed by Kirkos Reviews, and you can check that. It's also been reviewed by the online book club. It's been reviewed. There's also a reviewer that posted their review on YouTube. And there's also one that I'd like to lift up. And just so you know, the acclaimed book critic, Reading Roses, an affiliate of Amazon Services, confessed that she could not stop from reading the book to the end once she had started, due to the passionate manner in which the author, yours truly, presented the arguments, which was one of the reasons they loved most about the book. And Kirkos reviewer, one of the Kirkos reviewers, said that the book is an erudite economic analysis and welcome perspective. But listen to what Professor Martin Oppenheimer says. And Professor Martin Oppenheimer has written several books. He's the author of several groundbreaking works, including The Hate Handbook. He critiques that the book is very good, my book, Neoliberalism, and that its treatment of black nationalism and Marcus Garvey in the context of the globalized economy is unique and really a brand new interpretation. That's Professor Martin Oppenheimer. He's Professor Emeritus at Rutgers University, and he's a writer and retired professor of Penn. Now, I would be honored, yes.
Is this supposed to be your resume?
No, I'm sharing with you with my people, my community.
So what you're submitting to Lincoln
No, but I would be not that at all. I'm just sharing with you and my fans, and I would be honored to discuss the book with all of you. I mean, and I'm hoping to explore opportunities with anyone who is interested in exploring issues of power, neoliberalism, income inequality, poverty, resistance, Pan-Africa, community development, and the philosophy of the foundations of religion and Western societies. The book is available in all formats, all over the world, via Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, etc. It's available in various platforms and can be obtained through our Ingram Spark printers or directly from the author via ebay.com/RENMCKE90.
So, Ronaldo, who is the target population?
I continue to study and report on Philadelphia, Jamaica. Now, I'm telling you this. I am answering the question. I am answering your question. Okay. That's a very good question. I told you that I am interested in issues of power and position, neoliberalism, so on and so forth. And I said to you, I continue to study and report on Philadelphia, Jamaica, the Caribbean, the diaspora, black and brown peoples in the U.S. and the world, exposing the dynamics.
The diaspora?
Yes. Which includes everywhere. Exposing the dynamics of society that continue inequality or inequity and injustices. Yes? So yes. So the book is, I'm being honest. I said to you in a podcast recently that, some of the Russians, they think that they believe the lie that Putin is selling them. You know why? Because they're only interested in H&M and Berkshire. We're in Berkshire. Like some of our people say, I'm not political. And at the end of the day, whatever decisions your politicians make will affect you. Listen, the Chinese, not all Chinese are communist and believe in some of those totalitarian nonsense and so on, or whatever you might believe. But all Chinese are branded like that. Because people allow their leaders, because people are too indifferent and aloof. So this, my book, and my role in life is a way to continue to the scrutiny, because our leaders must feel the scrutiny of the people, so that they can't blink, they can't think that I can cheat, I can do the X, Y. You understand what I'm saying? Because when people are blind, that is when those who are in power continue to create strategies that when it is too late. Look at Putin. Yes?